Why does King Viserys cutting his hand on the Iron Throne make him unworthy? After the second episode of House of the Dragon, it became imperative to a few fans that King Viserys Targaryen was a better builder of scale models than he was a king. For starters, he cannot even sit on his office chair without getting cut by it, but there's more to it than Viserys' sitting skills. According to George R.R. Martin's mythology, the Iron Throne judges the rulers who sit upon it, and those rulers whom the royal chair deems unfit to rule, it hurts them. And the same happened with Viserys in the show. It is becoming evident that Viserys is behaving like a typical Aristotelian tragic hero, who often brings about his own downfall. In this video, we will explore a brief history of the Iron Throne, what makes it dangerous, and what it means for Viserys to be repeatedly cut by the throne. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Rhaenyra Targaryen, Princess of Dragonstone, and heir to the Iron Throne.
A brief history of the Iron Throne. The Iron Throne is often mentioned synonymously to the Seven Kingdoms, or the polity of Westeros that evolved after Aegon Targaryen, the first of his name, conquered Westeros. By his side, Aegon had his dragon, Balerion the Dread, his sister wives, and their dragons. Once he had defeated all his enemies and gained the nickname of the Conqueror, Aegon built a dragon-sized throne using the swords of his fallen enemies. According to the songs, 1,000 swords were forged in Balerion's fire to build the throne. However, it was actually forged by armorers. The blades were beaten, twisted, and melted to make an asymmetric monstrosity with twisted metal, which became the symbol of power and conquest for the next several hundred years. In the beginning, the Iron Throne was housed in Aegonfort, his wooden castle, and the city that grew around Aegonfort came to be known as King's Landing.
Sparo trivo sega uma kepus.
Nuoso dime, que si nuos demigos magularios.
What makes the Iron Throne so dangerous? Well, Aegon Targaryen was one of the strongest men who ever ruled the Seven Kingdoms. Naturally, a tough guy like himself would want his successors to be up on the task of ruling a continent. So, when he built his throne, he sacrificed comfort in favor of a test for stealth, composure, and calmness. If a ruler is not cautious and careful enough, they soon learn the consequences, and King Viserys from House of the Dragon is no exception. The Iron Throne is located on a high platform that's also made of steel. Because of the fanged blades, it becomes nearly impossible to rest your back on the throne, which essentially means that the one who sits on the throne must be always vigilant and should never sit easy. And even after 300 years, these blades cut deep, but that's just a physical aspect of the dangers that the Iron Throne possess. So what else can this beastly chair do? Well, according to the mythology that George R.R. Martin created, the throne is capable of judging those who sit upon it. If the king is someone who's unjust or not worthy of the throne, the king will find himself being cut by it on more occasions than one. And in rare circumstances, one may even die while seated on the throne. A king whose rule is not quite peaceful, or a king who holds no qualms or violence, may find himself bearing the brute force of his own throne. Furthermore, in some cases, the throne also sends a warning to the king about a rash decision he has just made, albeit by cutting the king. But apart from mortal danger, the king who sits on it fear getting cut for another reason. The people in general believe that a king who gets cut by the throne is unfit to rule them. This puts the king vulnerable to a mass rebellion.
Burn them all!
Where's my sister?
A brief history of the Iron Throne's victims. The most chilling example of the Iron Throne's judgment has to be that of King Maegor Targaryen, the first of his name, also known as Maegor the Cruel. He was the younger son of Aegon Targaryen and had usurped the throne after his elder brother and King Aenys Targaryen died of illness. Aenys had left Maegor a kingdom where the faith was in open rebellion with the crown, and Maegor killed thousands of septons and septas. In the end, even his allies left his side sheerly because of his brutish nature. Maegor was found dead on the Iron Throne with one of the swords impaling his neck. However, some believe that he was murdered by men and not by the throne. Apart from King Viserys, the throne also harmed Rhaenyra Targaryen when she sat upon the throne. Many years later, King Aerys Targaryen, Daenerys' father, became a sorry victim of the throne. We know how Aerys developed a penchant for burning people, and naturally, he was far from a worthy king. In the books, it is mentioned that Aerys was caught so often and had so many semi-healed wounds that he was nicknamed King Scab. Also in the books, we find mention of an event when Joffrey Baratheon, the devil incarnate, was cut by the Iron Throne.
It's a small cut from sitting the throne. It's nothing.
What Viserys' injury may portend. From what we have explored until now, it may seem that the throne discards those whom it judges unfit to rule. While that may be the case, I believe the major criterion for this so-called judgment is the king's peace. While the throne keeps hurting unjust and unworthy rulers who fail to keep the peace, it hurts other rulers as a warning about their next course of action, and as a warning against taking rash decisions. In episode 1 of House of the Dragon, we saw that Viserys was already hurting from a back wound he had inflicted on the throne. It could have been because of his obsession with getting a male heir. He knew that his wife had lost 5 children in 10 years, but he did not stop himself from putting her through it all over again. Later, Viserys loses his wife and child in a rather grisly, gruesome, and gut-churning delivery. Not only does he let his loving wife bleed to death, but he also loses his infant son. After this event, he loses a direct heir to the Iron Throne, and his brother Daemon once again becomes the prime contender to be the heir. However, Daemon goes a bit too far in celebrating this and raises a toast in the name of the dead prince. Viserys deems this as a personal offense and has Daemon leave King's Landing, but right after Daemon leaves, Viserys' hand gets cut. In all probability, this wound could have been a reminder to Viserys about his short-sightedness. He did not lose an heir to the throne, but gave way to the beginning of the end of House Targaryen. It was essentially the first event that would lead to the Dance of Dragons, an event that would destroy the dragons and, by extension, the House of the Dragon. Furthermore, Viserys went on to choose Alicent Hightower as his wife, despite the fact that Laena Velaryon would have been a stronger match and their wedlock would have ensured peace across the Seven Kingdoms. But Viserys went after Alicent, a woman known for her beauty, and someone who could give Viserys male children before Lady Laena of House Velaryon. It was right after he married Alicent that she gave him 2 boys and a girl, and the eldest of them, Aegon, the second of his name, would go on to fight his half-sister Rhaenyra, who was named heir to the throne by Viserys. Despite being the monarch of a house that literally owned a fleet of dragons, his actions prove that he has the least fire in his blood. So you see, although Viserys' rule was one of peace and prosperity, he left his kingdom in jeopardy. He did not die on the Iron Throne, but died in peace while asleep. But the next few years were a nightmare for the realm. We do not know what lies ahead in the live-action show, or what will be the love-hate relationship between Viserys and his chair, but one thing is certain: Viserys hated conflict so much that it got the better of him. Sometimes it is necessary to choose the lesser of 2 evils. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.